The US still reeling after homegrown attacks on politicians, journalists, and the Jewish community at the weekend. Why then would Donald Trump choose this moment to make such an announcement about troop deployment on the border?
Because, in a nutshell, this is his favored theme, and it's worked for him very well in the past, migration. When he's, up against the wall on other fronts, and right now he's, following a week and a half in the U.S. of hate-fueled, homegrown political violence, people sending package bombs to politicians, to journalists, shootings at a synagogue in a Jewish community outside of Pittsburgh. This is a great bait-and-switch tactic, so to speak. A show of force ahead of the midterms, return to a topic that he knows absolutely, indisputably, inevitably is going to stoke up and rile his base, and it's going to deflect attention. The critics of this move, and there are a chorus of critics of the move, along with the supporters, would say that this is a mere diversionary tactic, that there is no threat from this migrant caravan, that in fact the numbers on the migrant caravan, at one point they were 7,000, they've been shrinking. They're about half that size right now, partly because Mexico has offered asylum to some of them, partly just because there's drop-off as it makes its way slowly north. And I emphasize slowly because they're not expected to arrive in whatever numbers they do at anywhere near the U.S. border for weeks, maybe even months. So this is clearly using the military, active-duty military, in a very rare, unprecedented move. I mean, during the U.S.-Mexican War, military was deployed along the border, and was left there for decades. But in recent times, it's very rare. You have to go back to the 80s when military was sometimes put there to prevent the inflow of drugs from Mexico into the U.S. Essentially, as critics have said, this is military being used as props for a midterm campaign strategy and show of force that has been known to work effectively for Donald Trump in riling up his base and getting people enthusiastic to go out and vote for him ahead of these midterms and vote for Republicans in general.
Is it legal to use troops this way?
Technically, there's something called the Posse Comitatus. It's a federal statute that forbids the use of active military troops to enforce domestic laws. And not presumably, that would apply to this situation because migrants would be eventually seeking asylum inside the United States, and this would be if they are armed troops, as they are, they would be enforcing domestic laws. The White House now, what is their response? They say that this is not in any way, shape, or form a violation of that statute, that the military troops that are being there, and let's not forget, this is not just a handful. This is 5,200 that are going to be joining Border Patrol agents and National Guard officers in their hundreds who are already on location at the border. And a lot of people say that the laws are in place anyway to handle this situation. So they say they're just going to be acting in a defensive way. If they have weapons, they would only use their weapons in the case of self-defense. Look, it obviously raises eyebrows. It raises a lot of judicial, legal questions. But to answer your question, in a nutshell, it would seem to be using the military in at best an inappropriate manner, and at worst in a constitutionally dubious and illegal manner.
Another legal question for you. Donald Trump wants to end birthright citizenship. Can he do that?
Well, it depends who you look at, what you look at. If you look at something called the U.S. Constitution and you look at the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the first section of that, which was ratified by Congress in 1868, so we're going back 150 years. It's been on the books a while. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Therefore, if you were born on American soil, you are an American citizen. Now, Donald Trump might think that he can change that constitutionally. He says he's run it by his counsel, White House counsel, that they said he's well within his rights if he issues what's called an executive order. Remember, presidents through the centuries have done executive orders. It's a way to sort of run around Congress, get around legislation. It's often more temporary. It could also be more easily overturned by subsequent or succeeding presidents or chief executives. So in this case, it's Trump versus the Constitution, Trump's counsel versus the Constitution, and he says he's well within his rights of executive action.
All right. Thank you very much, Doug.